Good day everyone. So this is the video presentation for our topic about problem solving on hypothesis testing. Let's have first the hypothesis testing about the population mean when the variance is known. When we say hypothesis testing, it is a procedure used by statisticians to determine whether or not to reject a statement about the population. For this lesson, you will know when to accept or reject the null hypothesis, because we all know that the null hypothesis is the hypothesis to be tested. Here are the steps for hypothesis testing when the population variance is known. So the first step is to state the null and the alternative hypothesis. The second one is to choose the level of significance. The third step is to compute for the test statistic. So you will know what test statistic should be used. Will it be the z-test or the t-test? For the fourth one, we're going to determine the critical value or the p-value. So we will be having two methods for hypothesis testing. And lastly, you are going to draw a conclusion. The appropriate test statistic for testing a claim about the population mean when the population variance is known and n is greater than or equal to 30 is the z-test. Okay, so we have for the numerator sample mean minus the population mean divided by the quotient of the population standard deviation and square root of n. Let's have our first example. The leader of the Association of Jeepney Drivers claims that the average daily take-home pay of all jeepney drivers in Pasay City is 400 pesos. A random sample of 100 jeepney drivers in Pasay City was interviewed, and the average daily take-home pay of these drivers is found to be 425 pesos. Use a 0.05 significance level to find out if the average daily take-home pay of all jeepney drivers in Pasay City is different from 400 pesos. Assume that the population variance is 8,464. So you're going to, of course, describe or identify the given here. So yung 400 pesos natin dito, that is the average daily take-home pay of all jeepney drivers in Pasay City. So that means 400 here is the population mean. And then we have a random sample of 100 jeepney drivers. So yan na yung ating sample size, 100. At yung 425 dito, ito yung average daily take-home pay ng random sample of 100 jeepney drivers. So that is the sample mean. Yung level of significance natin is 0.05 and the given population variance is 8,464. Here is the solution for our example by using the critical value method. So the first step is state the null and the alternative hypothesis. So we have HO, the population mean is equal to 400. Alternative hypothesis, the population mean is not equal to 400 because of the term different, no? Na ginamit sa ating problem. Okay, step 2, choose the level of significance. So we have the given level of significance 0.05. And then for the third step, compute the test statistic. So the appropriate test statistic to be used is yung ating z-test. Substitute lang natin. Sample mean 425 minus 400 divided by 92. So saan galing yung 92? Since ang given natin is population variance, which is 8,464. So square root of that is the population standard deviation, which is equal to 92. Kaya meron tayo 92 dito. Divided by square root of 100. So yung 100 nasa loob siya ng ating radical symbol. So in simplifying, we will get 2.72. Always rounded up to the nearest hundreds, okay? So the test statistic, the z value now is equal to 2.72. Step 4, determine the critical value. The alternative hypothesis is non-directional, hence the two-tailed test shall be used. Divide alpha by 2 and then subtract the quotient from 0.5. So how can we know if the alternative hypothesis is non-directional or directional? So in our example, kung mapapansin ninyo, the symbol used is the inequality symbol or our unequal symbol. So kapag unequal yung ating alternative hypothesis, yung symbol, then it is non-directional and it is a two-tailed test. Or the test to be used is two-tailed. Kapag naman ang ating alternative hypothesis ay ang ginamit na symbol, we have the greater than or less than symbol. So it is directional. And it is a one-tailed test. Or the test to be used is one-tailed. Okay, tandaan nyo yan. At not equal or unequal symbol, non-directional, two-tailed. Less than, greater than symbol, directional, one-tailed. Okay? So in here, i-divide natin si alpha ng 2 kasi two-tailed. Two-tailed test ang gagamitin natin. Kaya meron tayo 0.05 divided by 2 will give us 0.025. Then subtract that from 0.5. So we'll get 0.4750. So kung makikita nyo yung area na to, yung equivalent niya sa ating Z table is equal to 1.96. Sir, paano kapag one-tailed? So no need to divide alpha by 2, subtract it right away from 0.5. Ganun lang, okay? So, yung critical value na natin, you can write CV here instead of this one para hindi kayo malito sa Z value natin kanina sa third step. Yung critical value natin is equal to 1.96. Therefore, our conclusion will be the average daily take-home pay of jeepney drivers is not equal to 400 pesos. This result is considered significant at significance level of 0.05. Okay, so kung papansin ninyo, in here, we rejected the null hypothesis and we accepted the alternative hypothesis. Sir, paano po malalaman kung i-reject natin or i-accept yung ating null hypothesis? So, kung papansin nyo yung ating critical value kanina is 1.96. So, kung mag-graph tayo dyan, if we're going to graph that, and then yung 2.72 will fall sa ating rejection region. Kaya, rejected si null hypothesis, accepted si alternative hypothesis. Therefore, the average daily take-home pay of jeepney drivers is not equal to 400 pesos. Is that clear? O yung critical value natin sa ating normal table, normal distribution or sa ating normal curve, which is 1.96. So, magpo-fall siya. And yung Z value natin is 2.72, which is greater than the critical value. Therefore, magpo-fall siya sa rejection region natin. Otherwise, sa acceptance region siya. If the Z score or the Z value sa step 3 is less than the critical value. Okay, tandaan nyo yun ha. If the critical or if the Z value sa step 3 is greater than the critical value, then magpo-fall siya sa rejection region. But, if the Z value na makukuha sa step 3 is less than the critical value, then it will fall on the acceptance region, in which saka lang natin i-accept yung null hypothesis. Okay? Now, let's proceed with the p-value method. For making decision and drawing a conclusion, following rules are important. So, if p-value is less than or equal to alpha or a, reject the null hypothesis. If p-value is greater than alpha, do not reject the null hypothesis. So, we're going to accept the null hypothesis. So, yan yung tatandaan using the p-value method. Okay, so same solution using the p-value method, yung first 3 steps natin. So kapag gagamitin nyo na yung method na ito, no need to write the first 3 steps. proceed na kayo right away to the fourth step in which you're going to determine the p-value. So the computed test statistic is z is equal to 2.72. Naalala nyo to sa step 3 natin kanina. Use the areas under the standard normal curve table, then the value is 0.4967. Si 2.72, yung area na makikita natin sa z-table natin will be 0.4967. Then, after that, subtract 0.4967 from 0.5. Since this is a two-tailed test, we are going to double the result. Okay? O, diba, non-directional yung example natin, yung alternative hypothesis. So, two-tailed test, doblehin natin yung result. So, 0.0033 times 2, so we'll get 0.0066 yung ating p-value. Okay? Ayan, 0.5 minus yung area, kaya meron tayo 0.0033. Then, times 2, kaya ang p-value natin is 0.0066. Now, sir, paano kapag one-tailed? No need to double it. Okay? Kung ano yung difference na makukuha nyo dito, yun na yung p-value natin. Now, for the conclusion, since 0.066 is less than 0.05, o di ba yan yung first rule? If the p-value is less than or equal to the level of significance, we are going to reject the null hypothesis. Okay? So, same conclusion tayo. The average daily take-home pay of jeepney drivers is not equal to 400 pesos. We are accepting the alternative hypothesis. Okay? Now let's proceed with hypothesis testing about a population mean when the variance is unknown. So, pag ganito naman yung problem solving natin, we are going to use the t-test instead of the z-test. So, kung t-test ang gagamitin natin, we will be using the table for t-critical values or yung t-table natin. So, ito yung formula na gagamitin natin. The only difference is syempre dahil sample standard deviation yung gagamitin natin instead of population standard deviation, yung letter S natin. Yun lang man ang pinagkaiba. Okay. A history teacher claims that the average height of Filipino males is 163 centimeters. A student taking up statistics randomly selects 20 Filipino males and measures their heights. Their heights in centimeter are shown below. So, ito yung data natin. So, we have 20. So, ang sample size natin is 20. So, N is less than 30. O, kaya dyan pa lang makikita natin kung ano ang gagamitin nating table, which is the t-test. Okay? Ayan. The question is, do the collected data present sufficient evidence to indicate that the average heights of Filipino males is different from 163? Use 0.05 level of significance and assume that the population follows a normal distribution. So, yung term na ginamit dito is still different. So, if we're going to state the alternative hypothesis, the symbol to be used is the inequality symbol or yung ating unequal symbol pa rin. Kapag less than, o yung less than symbol. Kapag greater than symbol. Okay? With our given, of course, we're going to construct a table. So, shortcut ko na siya dito. Hindi ko na nilagay lahat. So, it's up to you to complete it for you to know na 3,300 yung makukuha nating total dito sa ating x values and 396 naman sa last column. Okay, ginawa na natin to before. So, just list down all the given x values. Then, sum it up. And then, makukuha natin 3,300. Dito naman, we have x value minus sample mean. So, para makuha yung sample mean na 165, we have 3,300 divided by 20, yung sample size natin. Ang makukuha natin is 165. Kaya meron tayo 165 dito. Then subtract. 163 minus 165, negative 2. 167 minus 165, 2. 159 minus 165, we have negative 6, and so on. Okay? And then, square each deviation. So, lahat na dito will be positive. Square natin, negative 2 square, 4, 2 square, 4, negative 6 square, 36, and so on. And then, total natin. Okay? Okay. Using yung ating data kanina, so I have not included here. So, yung makukuha nating sample standard deviation now will be 4.57. Take note on that. 4.57 using yung formula natin. So, make sure na alam nyo pa rin yung formula in finding for the sample standard deviation, which is, kung gagamitin natin yon, the answer will be, yung S natin will be 4.57. Okay. So, same steps lang yan mga anak using the critical value method. Ito na yung ating null and alternative hypothesis. Yung population mean natin kanina is 163. So, the alternative will be population mean is not equal to 163. So, non-directional pa rin siya mga anak. Okay? Step 2, 0.05 pa rin yung level of significance. Step 3, since n is less than 30, so we're going to use the t-test. Substitute lang natin. Sample mean, 165 minus 163, population mean. Ito na yung S natin kanina, 4.57, using the formula in finding for the sample standard deviation. Okay, go back to that. Over square root of 20. And we will get a t-value of 1.96. Step 4, critical value, finding for the critical value. Of course, first, find for the degrees of freedom, which is equal to 19. So, non-directional siya. Two-tailed test tayo magre-refer, ha? Which is 0.05 in two-tail. So, yung makukuha nating critical value is positive and negative 2.09. Sir, bakit positive, negative? O, kasi two-tailed. Yung sa first example natin kanina, hindi ko lang na-include doon. It should be positive and negative as well. Okay? So, area in two-tail, o area of 0.05 in two-tail, not one-tail, ha? Kasi non-directional tayo, yung example natin. Okay. For the conclusion, there is no sufficient evidence to indicate that the average height of Filipino males is different from 163 centimeters. So, ibig sabihin, using our since the computed test statistic T is equal to 1.96 and it does not fall within the rejection region. Kasi nga, less than the critical value yung ating T. Kaya, nasa acceptance region siya or non-rejection region. So, we're going to accept the null hypothesis. So, there is no sufficient evidence to indicate that the average height of Filipino males is different from 163 centimeters. Okay? So, accepted ang null hypothesis. Now, how about the p-value method kapag using the t-test, no? Or yung hypothesis testing natin with unknown variance. So, same steps from, wag nyo nang isulat yung first 3 steps. Proceed na kayo agad sa step 4. Find the degrees of freedom, which is 19. Then, significance level natin 0.05. Okay, using the table of T critical values, go directly to the column ng ating degrees of freedom and then which is 19. Then move to the right and then hanapin natin yung T value natin which is 1.96. So wala kayong makikitang 1.96 sa table pero it is between 1.729 yung pinakamalapit na that is less than 1.96 and then the value greater than 1.96 so pinakamalapit din. So which is 2.09. And then kung papansin nyo si 1.729 the equivalent alpha niyan is 0.10. Tama? Area in two-tail tayo ha kasi non-directional. And then si 2.093 naman yung equivalent alpha niyan is 0.05. So therefore, obviously, the p-value is greater than our alpha, which is 0.05. So, yung second rule yan sa p-value method, the decision to make is to not reject the null hypothesis or i-accept natin yung ating null hypothesis. Is that clear? Okay. So, ang basa nito, huwag niyong kakalimutan ha, para hindi kayo malito. So, from left to right, P is less than, gano'n ang basa ha, P is less than 0.10 but greater than 0.05. Sir, lagi bang ganyan yung notation? Yes. Laging parang yung direction ng ating symbol ay laging paturo. Okay? Hindi yan magbabago. Pero ang basa nito, if we're going to separate this, P is less than 0.10 but greater than 0.05. Okay?